They were heroes on screen giants in our childhood. But what happened when the spotlight turned off? Lost in Space gave us dreams of galaxies. But the real story? It was back on Earth, behind the masks, behind the fame, behind the silence. This isn't nostalgia. This is what legacy looks like when no one's watching. Jonathan Harris. He turned Dr. Smith from a forgettable villain into the soul of Lost in Space with wit, flair, and total control. Born Jonathan Charasuchin in the Bronx, he built himself from the ground up. New name, new accent, new confidence. He rewrote lines, reshaped scenes, and became unforgettable. But the role that made him a legend also became his cage. When offered a cameo in the 1998 remake, he declined not out of pride, but fear. He'd spent decades protecting Dr. Smith. Letting another actor dilute that legacy? Unthinkable. After he had been in a hospital for a back injury, Harris died of a blood clot on the 3rd of November, 2002, 3 days before his 88th birthday. Behind the jokes was a man who'd given everything to a character, and when the applause faded, he was left wondering if anything remained of the man who started it all. Guy Williams. As John Robinson, he was everything a father should be: calm, righteous, strong. But behind the calm was a man who never stopped performing. Born Armando Catalano, he changed his name to fit Hollywood's mold. Fame came fast with Zorro, and Lost in Space cemented his place in pop culture. But the image became a burden. When the roles dried up in the US, he found a second life in Argentina, where fans still adored him. He thrived on the applause, but not the intimacy. Distance grew between him and his family. The man admired by millions became a stranger to those closest. In 1989, he died alone in Buenos Aires. His body wasn't discovered for days. A star once at the center of the frame, now dimmed in the corners of memory. But his light still lingers for those who remember what strength once looked like. If any of these names sound familiar, stop for a second. Think where you were when you first watched them. This isn't just about them. It's about you and what they meant to your time. Mark Goddard. As Major Don West, he was bold, loyal, unshakable, the kind of man boys looked up to. But when the spotlight cut, so did the clarity. The end of Lost in Space hit him hard. Depression crept in. Marriages unraveled. Fame faded, but the pressure lingered. Cortisol replaced applause. Then came the pivot. He went back to school, earned a degree, and chose a classroom over a camera. Working with children with disabilities, he found something stardom never gave him: meaning. He returned briefly in the 1998 Lost in Space film, but by then, the mission had changed. He didn't need the role. He had found purpose. When pulmonary fibrosis took him in 2023, he wasn't remembered just as an actor. He was remembered as a mentor, not just a man who once flew through space, but one who helped others rise from the ground. Bob May, the man inside the machine. You never saw his face, never heard his voice, but every whir, every gesture of the robot, that was him. Inside 200 pounds of metal and fiberglass, Bob May sweated, smoked, and memorized lines he'd never speak, just to sync with the voiceover. He wasn't credited, but he never complained. Performance ran in his blood. His grandfather had once worked vaudeville stages under hot lights and louder crowds. After the show ended, roles dried up. Conventions gave him moments of recognition, moments that reminded him he had mattered. Then came the fire. In 2008, his house burned down. Months later, so did his heart. He died in near silence. But for fans, his silhouette still stands, arms outstretched, warning danger. Sometimes the soul of a character is the one you never see. He was the invisible soul of a cultural icon, and for fans, unforgettable. Albert Salmi, the explosive ending. He played men on the edge, unpredictable, explosive, raw, and off-screen he carried that same fire. A student of Lee Strasberg, he delivered over 150 roles with haunting intensity. But while rage fueled his craft, it hollowed out his life. Alcohol crept in. Relationships cracked. Emotional distance became the default. In 1990, weeks after his wife filed a restraining order, they were both found dead. A murder-suicide. No curtain call, just blood, silence, and questions. Salmi once touched the stars, even briefly and lost in space. But the flame that lit his performances couldn't be contained, and in the end, it consumed him. Some actors channel fury, some are undone by it. If this is stirring something you hadn't felt in years, tell someone, a brother, a son, a friend who watched with you. Legacy only lives if it's passed on. Michael Greene. He only appeared in one episode as a flamboyant ringmaster with a booming presence. Just a moment, then gone. But Michael Greene never needed the spotlight to know who he was. Over a long career, he showed up in Bonanza, Columbo, Roots, Perry Mason. Always solid, always secondary, always human. He could have chased the fading light like so many others. Instead, he chose Maui, surf instead of scripts, silence instead of applause. He stepped away from the dopamine of recognition and into the oxytocin of peace. When he died in 2020 at 86, there were no headlines, no retrospectives, just a man who knew when his story was told. Some exits don't need drama, just dignity. Don Matheson. He didn't shout. He didn't chase fame. On screen, as Retho and later as an android, he embodied presence without noise. Still, controlled, steady. Outside Lost in Space, he made his mark in Land of the Giants, where quiet resolve became his trademark. He wasn't a scene stealer, but a stabilizer, the kind of actor who made chaos believable just by standing calmly inside it. Later in life, cancer crept in. Slowly. Silently. Just like the fame had faded, so did the strength. He withdrew, not in bitterness, but with grace. When he passed in 2014 at 84, there were no headlines, but fans remembered, because some roles echo not through volume, but through stillness. And Don Matheson knew how to stand still and still matter. Ted Cassidy. He towered over every scene, deep voice, towering frame, unforgettable silhouette, lurch in The Addams Family, the Hulk's voice, the eerie presence in Lost in Space. But behind the size was a body fighting itself. Cassidy lived with acromegaly, a disorder that made him tall but at a cost. His joints ached, his organs strained. Testosterone gave him presence. Cortisol gave him pain. Still, he kept working, lending gravity to even the smallest roles. A gentle soul wrapped in an outsized shell. In 1979, after complications from open-heart surgery, he was gone. Just 46, far too soon. He stood larger than life, but even giants have limits. And when they fall, the silence echoes louder than their footsteps. Behind every iconic character was a man wrestling with himself. Fame gave them light, but not always warmth. If you've ever felt unseen behind what you do, maybe you understand them more than you thought. John Carradine. He wasn't a household name, but he was always there. More than 350 film credits, stage roles that stretched across decades, one episode of Lost in Space, and never once did he stop working. Carradine didn't chase celebrity. He chased the next part, the next line, the next scene that needed gravity. With his gaunt face, sonorous voice, and presence born of Shakespeare, he made forgettable roles unforgettable. But time, even for workhorses, has limits. In his later years, illness took hold. His final act played out far from Hollywood in a quiet room in Milan. He died in 1988, alone. No camera, no curtain call, just the end of a lifetime's worth of stories. He didn't burn out. He just finished. Fritz Feld. He was on screen for a moment, but always left an impression. One episode of Lost in Space, one lip pop, one perfect bit of timing. That was his gift, making small things memorable. Feld acted in over 140 films, often as maitre d's, eccentrics, or comic foils. He never demanded the spotlight. He decorated it, and when the scene needed a lift, he gave it character. Off-screen, he lived simply, married once, loved once, played chess at night, shared jokes with friends, no scandal, no regret. He passed in 1993 at 93. Quietly, peacefully. As if he knew the moment had come, he gave a little nod and one last wink. Not every legacy shouts, some just smile and stay with you. Time humbles us all, but some echoes outlast the silence. They weren't perfect, they weren't meant to be, but they gave us characters who shaped how we saw bravery, humor, family, and failure. Some died alone, some chose peace, some were taken too soon. But all of them, every last one, left something behind. If Lost in Space gave you memories, let these stories remind you why those memories matter. In the end, they weren't just stars on a screen. They were maps to something deeper, something we're all still searching for.